Hi, I'm Emily Morgan. One of the best pieces of advice that I've ever received is if you can change your mindset, you can change your life.
Ooh, mindset shift. Love that. So, Emily, where did you learn that? Where in your career were you, and how have you used that?
Yeah, I think I probably learned that from Deepak Chopra. I do a lot of work with meditation for myself and follow a lot of the principles that we learn in his sort of meditation classes. And I think I started meditating probably about 4 or 5 years ago.
Interesting. So, meditation. That's interesting. So, as a business owner, how do you make time to meditate, Emily? And how has that benefited you?
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of boundaries with my time. So that's sort of step one is that, my mornings are sacred for these sorts of things. But I just have found that, if I'm not healthy, the company's not healthy. So it's really important to me that I always, take time to center myself before I'm trying to come in and lead 45 people. So.
Wow. So, how do you keep morning sacred though? I mean, setting boundaries is one thing, but then keeping that boundary is another thing. So, how do you make sure that happens? How do you make sure that your mornings really are sacred?
So a lot of it has to do with my calendar. So we've set up some rules with the people that run my calendar around I don't take meetings or calls in the evenings, on the weekends, and in the mornings I typically don't start taking calls till about 10:30. So that gives me time to get my son out the door, um, go see my chickens, which is meditative for me also, and fit a workout in, all that sort of thing. So I think it's just about establishing the boundaries that you want for your life, and then your team helping you execute on that, protecting you from it.
Yeah.
And it's
So,
not perfect.
of course, right? Nothing is. Nothing is. That makes sense. So, but you just said something there. Your chickens are meditative. Isn't meditation just no? Tell me about meditation for you.
Meditation for me, I learned to meditate using this app called Headspace. And what I learned about meditation is like it's just a way for your brain to sort of disconnect from all of the distraction thoughts, all the things that sort of like pull us in a million directions. So for me, it was about, they taught me like, it's like you're up in the clouds looking down and you can see everything beneath you, but you're sort of up here floating. And that's what meditation does for me is it lets me unhook my brain from whatever crazy things are going on.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, that sounds a lot like also right, getting our energy right and making sure that that's all correct. And one of the you shared with me an ebook that you wrote about delegation being an energy management system. So does meditation fit into delegation? Is it something part of that process, or talk to me about that?
Yeah, I mean, we like to teach, one of my sort of foundational thoughts with delegation is that unless we're really clear on what we want to spend our time on and what we're here to contribute, we shouldn't even be delegating because what will happen is we'll clear things from our plates. And then if we're not really clear what we want to do instead, we're just filling it with more and more stuff. And then we never really feel leveraged. We never feel impactful. So I think meditation helps us bring a really clear mind and heart to that conversation because we're taking time to invest in ourselves.
Okay. So that's probably why I suck at delegation, because I don't always get clear on that. So that's I mean it's kind of interesting as you say that. Like, it makes me think and reflect here about my failed efforts at delegation. But with that, energy management, right? Is that because we want to give more energy to like what fires us up and less that sucks? Or tell me a little bit about how you define energy management so we can talk about that.
Yeah, I think as entrepreneurs, the number one thing that we have to bring to the world is our energy around whatever it is we're here to make an impact around. So I believe that the world needs all of us leveraged, especially entrepreneurs, because the more leveraged we are, the more we can impact and create and sort of innovate. So to me, delegation is the tool that really helps us manage our energy away from things that make us stressed out, tired, exhausted, frustrated, and into work that really energizes us.
Wow. Okay, so we define that, and then we can delegate out, right, the things that we're not so good at. And you mentioned that delegation and delegating well is really a three-part process. You talk about discipline, art, and science. So take us through the discipline first, and then we'll move into the other two as we go here.
Yeah, so discipline is all about our own awareness of ourselves and what it is that, one, we're here to contribute, two, our commitment to actually clear these things from our plates, and three, being aware of our own behaviors. So a lot of the times we are the bottleneck. I would say most of the time we create the bottlenecks in ourselves. So this discipline piece is all about our own awareness, to commit to see things through when we hand them off, commit to stay out of the way when we hand them off, and commit to be aware of our own behaviors that might slow our teams down.
Okay, all right. So how do we, do we get more discipline? I mean, you talk about that we can change, right? So we can change things. How do we find that more discipline? Because I think that's a dirty word for some folks. Like, oh, I don't want to do that stuff. I want to do the fun stuff. So tell me a little bit more about how maybe we find that discipline.
Yeah, so entrepreneurs are notorious for this behavior, for being really challenged with this, because what happens is over time we build our companies and we're at the center of the company, right? And so everything has to flow through us. We're the ones putting out fires, we're solving all the problems, we're wearing a million hats, and we get a lot of energy from that. And what happens when we start to delegate or we start to sort of come to terms with the fact that we're out of time, it can be really scary for an entrepreneur to be like, well, what am I here to contribute? Like, if I'm not here to solve all these problems, what is my contribution? And a lot of the times our contribution is just our ideas, like, and it's our, it's our vision, and that's really important as well. So that's sort of what it comes down to, when you think about it.
Okay. Okay. So I can get behind that. That makes sense to me. So let's step two here is the art, right? Or part two, I guess, not maybe step two, but part two here is the art of delegation. So talk to us about the art, please.
Yeah, the art is all about what you're going to delegate. And that's really the fun part for a lot of people, because it's the part where we're going to have someone do our scheduling, have someone do our inbox. And what I would caution you about here is, like, we always want to start with our goals. We always want to focus on delegating things that tie to the larger picture that we're trying to accomplish, for the quarter, for the year, whatever. There's always delegations hidden in there. And then we always want to look for things that are repeatable, things that we're doing more than once. Those are things that are easy candidates for delegation. And then we'll look for the low hanging fruit. What are the things that are just time wasters for us? I'm sure we could rattle off a million of those: ordering flowers, booking massages, doing flights. Those are all candidates for delegation that most people, would immediately start with. And then compartmentalizing them. So taking a larger project or activity that you're working on and being able to work with your support partner to unpack all the different things that need to happen for that to get to done that you don't necessarily need to do. So, ideally that's 80% of a project that you might be working on.
Wow. So okay. So that we'll go into science here, but one of the things that I hear is, well, I don't have the money to delegate, right? I can't afford to do that. And I love that in your ebook that you talk about the math of not delegating well. That I was like, whoa, that totally blows my mind and totally makes sense. So can you explain that a little bit for folks that might be new to that idea?
Yeah, it's about knowing our worth, right? So if you take your annual salary or your desired annual salary and you divide it by, on average, 2,080 hours, that's basically a 40-hour work week if you want to work 40 hours. And you figure out what that number is for yourself. And then typically it's $100 or more, right, that we are paying ourselves. So if you kind of flip the conversation, you're paying yourself $100 an hour to do work that you hate doing, that drains your energy, that isn't moving the business forward. And you could pay someone else, 20, 40, $60 an hour even to do that exact same work. And so one, you're freeing up your own time, and two, you're saving money.
Yeah, and three, it gives you the energy to do higher value stuff, so you can keep earning that $100 an hour instead of just the $40 or $60 an hour. Right? Am I getting this right?
Right. And that's where my earlier point comes in. If you're not clear on the things that you're going to do that are really the most impactful, then this isn't going to be an equation that makes sense to you, because you're like, but I'm really good at all these putting out fires and cleaning up messes and solving everyone's problems.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, definitely got to get clear on those goals. Makes good sense to me. So with that, right? We have discipline, we have art. Now the science here. This is probably the one that maybe I think people start with this. It seems like that they start with the science. So talk to us about the science of delegation and why how we can leverage this.
Yeah. So if you think about the discipline, all right, you're disciplined, you got the mindset, you are clear on what you want to spend your time on, you get through the art step and you figure out what you're going to hand off. This last piece of it is really about how you systematically hand it off to someone else. So there's some best practices that we recommend when you're handing things off to other people, but it's all about how you're getting it from your plate to someone else's plate. So that's the science piece.
Okay. All right. So we can do that. Three parts. Step, step, step. Okay, discipline, art, science. Got it. So how did you how did you come across this? Are you an accountant, a process person? I mean, where did you get started in delegation, Emily? Because I know this is your whole jam. I mean, Delegate Solutions is your company and this is what you do. So how did you get started doing this?
Yeah, so my background before starting my company 15 years ago is I was an executive assistant. So I sat in the seat of being delegated to. And then I started my business and I was being delegated to, because when I started the business, it was really just me. And I was the assistant to lots of different people. And then as my company grew, I in turn got more entrepreneurial. All of a sudden now I'm the one delegating to all different kinds of people. So I have this 360 experience with delegation that, I understand the best practices of how to hand something to someone, what to hand, and then how to sort of move things forward if I'm being delegated to.
So even as the owner, you still get delegated to? I mean, what do you do? Just say, "No, I'm the owner. You do that." Or how do you handle that if somebody does delegate to you?
Well, remember, we're talking 80/20, right? So if I'm handing a project to one of my team members, there's still 20% that I'm likely accountable for if it's a larger project. And so what I mean by that is someone works on something and they say, "Hey, I've got this ready for you." And then I still in turn have to now review it, give feedback, action it. So it's sort of that's what I mean by delegation.
Okay. No, that's cool, and that makes sense, right? And that feels better about that. So, what gets in the way of delegation? You call these bottlenecks. So, talk to us about some of these delegation bottlenecks that we're the cause of as the entrepreneur, as the business owner.
Oh my gosh, there's so many. We've boiled it down to five behaviors that, as entrepreneurs, we all do. And so we wear these bottleneck types throughout the day. The first one is called the hero. So we all heroes. We love to save the day. Our team has really been conditioned to run everything through us. We're notorious for this because we can sometimes attribute our own self-worth to it, and we get a lot of energy by feeling like we need to solve all the problems all the time. So this can be really frustrating for our teams. The second type we call the interventionist. So this is the person who loves to be looped in. It's a traditional micromanager, and this stems from a real lack of trust that anyone can do it as well as we can. Sometimes, if you think about like scar tissue that develops over time, the interventionist kind of comes out of one failed delegation after the next. The third type is the isolationist. So this type loves to just say, "I'm just going to do it myself." And what happens is it becomes impossible to delegate at that point because you're not available to have any conversations with anyone that you might try to delegate to because you're too busy doing it yourself. And this just creates like an ongoing cycle of bad behavior. The fourth type is called the time optimist. And this is like the one I always struggle with. Even though I'm like very structured and scheduled, I could definitely be unrealistic about what my team can do given the time and resources that we have. Um, and what's important when you're a time optimist is to show a little restraint and to respect the goals that have already been established. And the same is true with the fifth type, which is the dreamer. Dreamers, entrepreneurs in particular, we love to ideate, we love to share big ideas. And the thing to understand when you're a dreamer is that you're living in ideation, your team is living in execution. And so they're hearing, whenever you're riffing and you're sharing ideas, they're hearing, oh my God, now I have to action this. Now I have to action this. But I thought I was supposed to be working on this. Oh crap. Is this more important than that? And so there's this friction that comes out of, a traditional support partner, very detailed, very sort of precision mindset, with a dreamer who's very like, woohoo, this is so exciting, like chasing squirrels.
Wow.
So
So
those are the
so
five types.
yeah, so you said support partner a couple times. So what does that mean? Because I'm not used to hearing that word the way, I don't think the way that you're using it. So what do you mean by that?
Yeah, a support partner is there to leverage your time. So it's an executive assistant, an admin, virtual assistant, whatever you want to call it. But they're like your gatekeepers. They're there to protect you from other people trying to steal your time, you sort of not being respectful of your time and staying in your lane. To me, a support partner is really proactive. So they're anticipating what you might need. They're gatekeeping for you. They're, slaying dragons that are trying to come and get your time. And they're very much, focused on how to get you more leveraged.
Wow. Well, it sounds like a lot more strategic than
Mm-hmm.
many people think about as an entrepreneur, right? I think of, I'll tell you, I didn't think about that, right? I didn't think about the strategic use of an assistant. I just thought, okay, well, I need this done and that done, and okay, well, let's get those done. But to actually protect my time and to know that, I mean, you have to have some level of relationship with them. Is that right? Not just a task person?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like when it comes to getting admin support, there's task based, right? So, sort of what you're talking about. I know I need this. Can you do this for me? There's full time in your office, sitting right next to you, handling your world. And then there's what we do, which is fractional and strategic and consultative. And so a lot of entrepreneurs know they need help, but they don't know what to delegate. They don't know how to delegate. They don't want to have to sit there and think about what you're going to give to this person to fill their time. And so a resource like ours is there to help you put a delegation strategy together, protect your time, put some boundaries to your calendar, and really just help you figure out how to get the best leverage out of support. So there's, I think, multiple ways that you can get help. It's just a matter of, one, how much do you want to actually manage it? Because if you want to be a little bit hands off and just be sort of managed yourself, then a service like ours is probably the lane you want to go in. If you're really clear, like, hey, I need this very simple thing done over and over again every month, a task-based solution is probably a better fit.
Okay. Okay. So you are really, that's partnership, right? What you offer, that's very interesting and very different than what a lot of folks have considered, at least what I've considered anyway. So I guess I can't speak for everybody here, but you also mentioned the time optimist here, and I think I'm struggling with that too, right? I think more can get done. I can shove 30 pounds worth of crap in a 5 pound sack, and that doesn't happen. So how do is you're having that support partner, is that the best way? I mean, how do you reframe this for you?
For me, I struggle with it every day. And as you elevate out of more and more and more, like you become less and less in touch with the capacity that the team has. And so the way that I try to self-regulate is through weekly meetings with my support team. So they're sort of like, I can tell by the looks on their face and the way that we're talking about things, how overloaded they are. Um, and then, we run on EOS, the Entrepreneur's Operating System. So we have very clear quarterly rocks, annual goals. We're very precision oriented when it comes to what we're focusing on for the quarter. So that's sort of how I try and regulate. And then they'll, we use a parking lot as an example. So I'll say, I really want to work on this. And then I'll get pushed back. You sure? Because we're also working on boom, boom, boom. Okay, well, let's put on the parking lot and let's talk about it next week. So you don't lose the thought. The thought and the idea is still respected, but there's a holding place for it.
Yeah, that's good. That feels better and more
Yeah.
manageable and more doable there. Okay, so all right, so I'm committed to delegation. I got your three-part system here. I know the bottleneck behaviors. What are some other pitfalls that I need to be aware of or concerns that I need to think about before I get started along the path of delegating?
Yeah. So delegating's super scary, right? Like we spend all this time like getting it out of our brain, someone's doing it, and then oh my God, they're gone. And now what? I don't even remember how to do it anymore. Right? Like we've all been there. So I think as a best practice, whenever you're delegating to someone, they should be capturing what they're learning. We do like a client guidebook. So it talks about, this is the process to do that. And it just lives in a place that you own so that if that ever happens, you're not sort of in this place where like, oh my God, what am I going to do? So I was
So
thinking about that.
yeah, well, so that gets back to your point about starting with your goals, starting with your boundaries, right? Being clear on that and getting there. So that's good, and that's a good pitfall to avoid there. So, all right, I want to get started. How do we get started? Like, what's the best way to get started on that? To get actually clear on those goals and those things that give us energy. Like, do you have some tips on that?
Yeah, I'm working on it this quarter for myself. I am a student of strategic coach, and they teach this concept called unique ability. And so I'm doing a lot of work to sort of get back in touch with what my unique ability is, because that will help you understand what we're here to do, what impact we're trying to make. So that would be step one always. Step two is to use like some exercises. So we have an assessment called a freedom analysis that you can do on your own. You can do it live on Zoom with one of our team members for free. And we just talk about what you're spending your time on, and we lay it out in different segments so we can figure out what can go. We also have a list of sample tasks to delegate by categories. So it's really great for brainstorming if you're like, I don't even know where to start. I don't know what anyone can help me with. This is a really, people love this resource because it's like they just start circling and highlighting and everything, what can go. So I think it's a reflective step is the very first thing you should do.
Awesome. Awesome. That's good stuff. So, folks, if you want to get more of Emily's wisdom, check out her Facebook page at facebook.com/delegate solutions. Check that out. She's got a lot of great resources there. They share tons of good stuff. But, Emily, there's one more thing that you want to impart on us. I'm going to give you the last word in delegation.
Be real, you are here with a specific thing that you're here to contribute to the world. And so understanding what that is and protecting it fiercely is really the best thing that you can do for yourself. So the world needs you elevated. And that's the first chapter of my new book that's coming out. And I really believe it. So delegation is the path to get you elevated.
I love that. Delegation is the path to get you elevated. Get clear on your goals, get clear on what needs to be done, get clear on what you can delegate and what you can't, and get some energy management for yourself.
And get out of the way. And get out of the way.
There you go. Yeah, get back out of your own way so more work can get done. Don't be the bottleneck.
Yep.
So that's awesome. Thank you, Emily, so much for sharing some of your insight with us. I certainly appreciate you and certainly appreciate everyone that's watching and listening here. Ben Lichtenwaller says that we are the bottleneck. Awareness is key. Great points, Emily. So thank you, Ben. Thank you, everyone. And Emily, thank you so much to you. I appreciate you very much. Great to see you.